PFT PM Posse. If Antonio Brown would have retired without all of his antics and BS, would he most likely be a Hall of Famer based on what he did prior to it all blowing up with the Steelers, then the Raiders, and ultimately the Bucs? I think he's got Hall of Fame numbers. I think he's had a Hall of Fame career. I think he's been a difference maker, but good luck getting a room full of human beings to set aside all of the crap and vote for Antonio Brown when you have so many other receivers who are generating great numbers. And it's hard to emerge from that morass of humanity. And really, he doesn't have any. Well, he does. He does have the Super Bowl win with the Bucs, none with the Steelers. He was a rookie, I believe, the year that they made it to the Super Bowl and lost to the Packers, but he didn't have much of a contribution that season. But he did win a Super Bowl with the Bucs in 2020. He had great performances. There were 5 or 6 straight years where he was the best or one of the best receivers in the game. He'd have a strong Hall of Fame case, a stronger Hall of Fame case without all the other stuff. And the other stuff isn't supposed to matter. It's not supposed to matter. But this isn't some computer that is programmed. This isn't AI that's picking Hall of Famers. These are human beings, and they're going to be influenced by Antonio Brown's behavior and the way things just kind of crumbled in the latter stages of his NFL career. It's not supposed to be that way, but it will be that way when the time comes. Next question. And I can't tell whether this is passive aggressive or not. How do you remain unbiased when covering the league? Surely you have formed meaningful relationships over the last 2 decades, but you never seem to let those personal ties deter you from your pursuit of truth. Is it a conscious effort to remain free from the shackles of bias, or does it come naturally to you after doing it for so long? Hey, look, I remember when I went to Steelers training camp for the first time, 2006, and the late Gary Wishard, an agent who was relentless in his effort to represent his clients. And he would call everyone in the media to try to spin things in favor of his guys and also spin things to the detriment of other players who were either trying to be signed by the same team or drafted by the same team. I remember he called me after, and he died the day the lockout started in 2011. But Gary called me after he saw that I had gone to Steelers training camp, and he said, don't do it. Don't start getting to know the people in the league because it will affect your ability to still say the things that you need to say. Once you know people, you're going to soften your approach. You're going to pull punches when it's time to say what needs to be said. And I took that to heart. I took it as a challenge. And hey, is it easy to be blunt and candid with my views when there are people out there who I know and who may disagree strongly with my assessment and may not want my assessment to be out there? Yeah, it's created issues. It's created problems. It's created confrontations. It's prevented me from having people ever show up again on an episode of PFT Live or PFT PM. It makes it harder when on game days I'm trying to track down certain players or certain teams when there's a development that compels me to get someone on the phone to explain a key play in a game, a key moment, a key performance. Sometimes I bang against that wall, and it can be a challenge. But most people respect and understand and appreciate that I got to do what I got to do. And yeah, is it easy all the time? No, it's not easy. And the more people you get to know in and around the league, the harder it is. So I try to acknowledge it. I try to manage it, and saying all due respect doesn't get you very far. But we have our favorites, we have the players we like. But if people do things that merit criticism, then we have to say, hey, you know what? We love this guy, but I mean, with Stephon Diggs, we love Stephon Diggs, but whatever went on a couple of weeks ago wasn't a good look for him or the Bills. And you know what? Stephon Diggs far less sensitive about that external criticism than the Bills are. I know the Bills are stung by and concerned by criticism from anyone outside the team. Very stung and inclined to maybe hold grudges. So still, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? My duty is to the audience. It always has been. It always will be. My duty isn't to my sources. My duty isn't to NBC. My duty is to the audience. And that is first and foremost. That's how we've grown. And that's how we'll continue to endure, hopefully. Hurricane Dave, have you taken any measures to ensure Macy is protected from the bear that has been roaming the property? No, I mean, Jill takes her out front and lets her run around. We take her out back. It's fenced in physically in the back. There's an electric fence in the front. We just hope that her instincts will kick in and she will run from the bear if she sees it, not decide to bark and confront the bear, although that may make the bear run away. I don't know. She just needs to be careful about approaching the bear, especially about approaching bear cubs. We haven't seen any cubs, so that's good. But there are groundhogs that live under the barn, and she was out at the fence out back the other day, and she happened to see one of the groundhogs, and she lost her shit when she saw that groundhog. And that thing just chugged down back into the hole under the barn. So I'd like to think she's smart enough to know that there are things out there bigger than her that maybe she should choose not to bark at, but we'll see. We haven't had a bear sighting in a couple of weeks, but I know that bear is still out there. At court's decision, is there a realistic chance the NFL adopts some of the USFL, XFL rules that seem to be logical improvements to what is currently in place? Well, I hope so. We talked about Sky Judge yesterday and how well it worked to result in a flag being picked up that would have taken a touchdown off the board in one of the playoff games the other night. I hope the NFL sees that it works, how it can work, and will embrace it. Other things like the XFL's kickoff, why not consider that? I'm a big proponent of alternative overtimes, the 2-point conversion shootout that is employed. I love that. It was one of our ideas. When the XFL first came back in 2020, Oliver Luck, who was the commissioner of the XFL, admitted to me that we liked your idea and we're using it. And I mean, he also was influenced by the fact that soccer uses the shootout with penalty kicks. But yeah, there's a way you got to resolve this game. And at some point, there's wisdom in minimizing the wear and tear on the players. Now, 2-point conversions back and forth adds to wear and tear, but it's not like having full drives. And now for an NFL playoff game, we're looking at least 2 drives in every game, because if there's a touchdown scored on that opening drive, the team that kicked to start overtime gets another opportunity. So at least 2 drives, maybe 3 drives, maybe 4 drives, maybe more drives. Why not do something like what is now done? And I don't follow the USFL and the XFL enough to know what other tweaks are out there, but I think anything that they are doing differently from the NFL is worth looking at, it's worth studying, and it's worth the NFL dropping its pride and being willing to say, we saw something that some other league did that we think would be an improvement to what we do. There's an arrogance that needs to be abandoned by the NFL to acknowledge somebody else has something better than we have, and even though we didn't think of it, we're going to use it. You know, there's a bubble of the NFL power brokers and decision makers, and if you're not inside that bubble, they really don't care what you think. And I know that because I have tried to express opinions to folks who have reacted with an attitude that is along the lines of, we don't care what you think. We only care about what we think. And so that would take, I think, a high degree of self-awareness and selflessness by the league to be willing to say, hey, you know what? These other leagues kind of got it figured out. Yeah, we're more than happy to take their rule and adopt their rule and acknowledge to the world that that's exactly what we did. And I can only hope that the league will do that and is constantly looking for any other football rules out there, wherever they come from, college, high school, pee-wee, wherever, anything that could help the NFL improve, they should always be looking for that. Ben Trunfio, do you think Jalen Hurts will take a step forward or backward this upcoming season? Well, I know the Eagles think he's going to take a step forward, especially as a passer, and there's no reason to think he's all of a sudden going to regress. We saw a dramatic jump in year 3 of his career. Now he's got his financial security, and we saw improvement as a passer. I think he only gets better and better. He's got all the intangibles. There was a great item from Dan Pompei of The Athletic that gets into what the Eagles saw in him and how he has lived up to everything they believed they were going to get from Jalen Hurts. And I do only think he's going to get better and better. And he also knows that there's no guarantee, there's no entitlement. This is where he's very different from Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz got pissed when the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts. I think Hurts wouldn't think twice about the Eagles drafting and grooming a young quarterback because he understands there's no guarantee, there's no given, it's year to year. And you have to constantly prove yourself worthy of being the starter because they're always going to look for somebody who might be better than you. So your only avenue is to make yourself better and better and better at what it is that you do. Lee Dale UK has a question that I'm not prepared to answer because I don't know, but it's something worth mentioning. With the potential of European teams, how will the NFL handle operating in different countries with regards to labor laws and other employment issues? I don't know. I know that questions have emerged about tax rates, exchange rates, what you would do with the salary cap. Would you give more cap space to teams in London to account for that? It's a different existence. Now, when a player leaves home for a road game, in many cases, in most cases, it's leave Saturday, back Sunday night. There are exceptions. West Coast teams that have back-to-back games at their request on the East Coast will stay for a week. But road trip for a London team is going to be 3 weeks in the U.S. Base of operations somewhere in the eastern portion of the country. That's where they'll practice. That's where they'll stay. That's where they'll live. And they'll play multiple games in the U.S. before going home. That's a long time for the family members who never signed up to be in London or Germany to be stuck in other countries. That's one of the things where the NFL's desire to expand to other countries, the desire to chase the almighty euro, that at some point needs to take a back seat to the impact it's going to have on the human beings who are your players. And I wonder if it will cause draft picks to say no thank you. I'm not going to London. I'm not going to play for the London team. I'm not going to play for the Germany team. Will it cause players to insist on no trade clauses to London and Germany? Wouldn't that be an interesting development? We currently see no trade clauses generally. What if there's a specific no trade clause that you will not trade me to the German teams or the London teams? And I'm surprised there hasn't been, and maybe there has been, it just hasn't been publicized, a no trade clause to the Cardinals, a no trade clause to the Texans. I guess if you're going to ask for a no trade clause, just ask for the whole thing. But I think for the first time ever, when you're talking about that kind of geographic shock, those kind of realities of playing road games, multiple away from home, being gone for 2-3 weeks at a time, you may see some no trade clauses specifically for the teams in Europe. Just more of the things the NFL needs to think about. Look, there's a whole list of issues and then some that the league will need to think about. And there'll be things that happen that the league didn't think about. So it doesn't matter until the league's ready to do it. But boy, when the league's ready to do it, there's going to be plenty of work to do to get this right and to maintain ultimately the competitive balance. You don't want the teams that are playing in other countries to be at a disadvantage, but you also don't want to add enough, whether it's extra cap space, extra draft picks, whatever, that it creates an advantage, an unfair advantage. You want it to be equal. And I think it's hard to do that if you're talking about putting teams in other countries. But once the money is where the league wants it to be, if they think that it's going to be better financially for the league and for the teams to move or to expand with teams in Europe, they'll do it. They'll grab the money and they'll worry about the details later. Jimmy Orlovsky, if all quarterbacks are healthy on week 1, who's the starting quarterback for the 49ers? I think it's Brock Purdy if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, I think it's Sam Darnold. And I think Trey Lance is just the break glass in event of emergency option, which they needed last year with Brock Purdy. You better have a good QB3 around if you're the 49ers, because you never know when you're going to need him, because you needed him last year. You better have a good QB4 lurking around if you're the 49ers. And you better have 3 of them dressed. Of all the teams out there that would be well advised to take advantage of the new rule that allows you to have a third quarterback dressed on game day. And one of the big caveats is you have to carry 3 quarterbacks on your 53-man roster. Plenty of teams don't do that. But this can't be a guy that gets called up from the practice squad. It's got to be a guy that's on the 53-man roster. 49ers would be very wise to do that. But I think it will be Purdy. And if Purdy can't stay healthy for the course of the 2023 season, that's when we get into my hot take that created Plenty of consternation among 49ers fans that the 49ers will be in the Kirk Cousins business next year if Purdy can't stay healthy this year. Get ready for it, folks. It's coming. That is a very viable alternative for Kyle Shanahan even now, because look at the struggles the 49ers have had at quarterback due to their inability to stay healthy. The one thing that Kirk Cousins can do better than anyone else, other than play well at 1 o'clock Eastern and get paid a lot of money, it's stay healthy. And that's something the 49ers haven't had. It's something the Rams haven't had recently, too. And that's why I think there's a chance that the 49ers and the Rams end up in a financial tug of war for Kirk Cousins come next March. And people may think that's crazy. That's fine. Just remember, if it happens, remember where you heard it and remember how you felt when you heard it. And just try to think back to that when we get to next February or March and the planets begin to align that way. I'm not saying they will. All I'm saying is part of what we do here is we try to give you ideas about how things are going to unfold. This is a way of how things could unfold based upon what the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins. They can't stop him from leaving. What does he want? What does the 49ers want? What do the Rams want? Those are all relative factors, but it could come to be that we have the Rams and the 49ers trying to chase Kirk Cousins when next March rolls around. There's some questions that I see them show up every day. One of these days I'll get to them. I need to wrap this up, though. Let's see what else we have here. David Mitchell, who is the player you hinted at that lost millions gambling last year? When can you elaborate? I'm not going to until I can nail it down, if I ever can. I heard a name not that long ago, and I started the process of trying to nail it down. And, I mean, how do you ever prove it? Short of getting the betting slips from the sports books who aren't going to give it to me, how do I ever prove it? Either the player admits to it or the sports books admit to it. One name I heard, I don't know, but that led to another name because that player, when asked about it, said, maybe you have me confused with a different player. So all I know is I believe completely and entirely the source that told me there is a player in the league that lost $8 million on sports betting last year, or gambling generally. It could have been other things. I don't know who it is, and until I know with certainty who it is, I can't say. But the name that I initially heard when I tried to nail down who it was, I wasn't able to, and it actually sent me in a different direction. And again, how do you truly ever nail that down without admission or confirmation from the player or from the sports book? And it's hard to get. The sports books happy to rat out the players to their teams if they're betting in ways they shouldn't be betting, but they're not going to provide the information about the identities of their big losers. It's not good for business, regardless of any legal requirements. You don't want to out your biggest losers. You don't want to make them feel bad. You want them to keep betting. You want all people to happily lose without any fear that they're ever going to be found out that they gamble a lot and that they're not very good at it. JC Carm, which starting quarterbacks should be on notice if they have a bad year? Boy, that's one that's going to require some thought. Maybe that's one I take under advisement. Let me make a note here. And I'm actually going to use pen and paper. Just pretending to write here. Which QB on notice? Maybe I'll do that tomorrow if things are slow. If bad years. I'm going to go back and read this later, and I'm going to say, what was I writing here? But which QB year for Wednesday? If nothing else going on. Thank you. All right, let's see what else we have. NFL Leads has a question. With PFT being international these days, can you shed some insights into your home state of West Virginia? It doesn't seem to have the reputation of many other states and isn't widely known for non-Americans. Hell, it isn't widely known for Americans. When I travel, and when I was in college, I worked out in California at a Chevron refinery in a co-op program. You tell people you're from West Virginia, and they say, "Oh, I've been to Virginia." And it's like, "Yeah, I have been too. I don't live there. And yes, it's right next to us, but we are a separate state." I mean, I know about South Dakota, and I'm on the other side of the country. How do people who live in the United States not recognize that West Virginia is one of the 50 states. Yes, it's one of the poorer states. And yes, it gets looked down upon by other states. And that's fine. My attitude is go ahead and think it's not beautiful here. Go ahead and think it's not awesome here. Go ahead and think it's not a great place to live. I don't want more people here. Go live somewhere else. Overpopulate other states. I don't want a bunch of people showing up here. And they're trying to make the state more attractive now. They want to eliminate personal income tax, which, by the way, I would not object to. And they're in the process of doing it. But with people working remotely now, the idea is, hey, we can get more people to come live in West Virginia because you can live anywhere. I mean, that's what I've done for 14 years with PFT as a full-time job. I've worked at home. I could live anywhere. I could live everywhere. I could have multiple houses. I could spend time here. I could spend time there. I could do this. I'm perfectly happy here. I'm perfectly content here. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. We have a great piece of land. Family is here, which helps. But they may not want me in the Chamber of Commerce or the tourism guide because my attitude is stay out. We don't want you. You can visit, but leave. And when you visit, make it a short one and then leave. I'd rather people not know about what it means to live here in West Virginia. Again, probably not something that would make me popular with the folks who want to increase the tax base. I don't care. I pay my taxes and I have the right to say, I don't want more people moving here. All right. Neil watches PFT. See, I didn't even know the Pirates are struggling now. I tweeted on April 23rd after the Pirates had some great early season win. It's been 31 years since I've regularly followed the Pittsburgh Pirates. Please don't make me start doing it now. And Neil points out, aren't you glad you didn't follow the Pirates from 20-9 to 35-42? I had no idea what their record is. I have not been following. I just accept the fact that they're never going to be good again in my lifetime. And it doesn't matter because I got to enjoy a World Series win. When I was 14 years old, 1979, the We Are Family Pirates with Willie Stargell and Dave Parker and Bill Maddox on third. And boy, if I sit here long enough, I can think of all the players and all the positions. Maybe I can't. Kent TeColvey was the reliever with that underhand sidearm throw. But I knew when they lost to the Braves in the NLCS Game 7, when somehow Barry Bonds isn't able to throw out Sid Bream, who scored from second on a routine single, that was it. It was done. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I feel about baseball the way I would feel about football if the Vikings had won a Super Bowl in the 70s, and you wouldn't have to deal with me. There's an alternate universe out there where the Vikings won a Super Bowl at some point before 2001, and I never ended up in this business. And you may from time to time pine for that universe, because in that universe, whoever started PFT may still have their comments on. I don't, and I won't. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.